Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Abez Show with me, Abe, your host. Today, I have a very special guest with me. Shereen, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you, Abe?
I'm good, I'm good. So, please tell my audience who is Shereen and what do you do?
Who is Shereen and what does she do? That's a very deep question.
Yes, very
Um,
philosophical this way.
yeah, I would say I'm a girl from Bahrain. That's fundamentally who I am, and everything else around that is my personality that tends to be evolving. So it's never one solid thing. So that's your baseline. What I'm doing at the moment is a few things. Professionally, I work with startups in one way, shape, or form. And personally, when I'm not working with startups, I'm really enjoying gymming, specifically CrossFit. And you can't shut CrossFitters up about CrossFit. So that's how I identify these days.
And, it's funny you mentioned, it is so true. The people who do CrossFit cannot stop talking about CrossFit. You know what I mean?
Have
And
you have you tried?
I have in the past, and so okay, full disclaimer. So I used to be a professional football coach, so I was on the field
Oh,
most of the
okay.
time. So I know all about endurance, and usually people who played for the teams that I've coached hated me because the first like 1 month they wouldn't even touch the ball. They'd be all about running and suicide,
Drills and
grids and
yeah.
drills and jumping jacks and all that. And people would make up all kinds of like crazy excuses not to show up to practice. Oh, my knee hurts. My brother's birthday, my girlfriend's birthday. But everybody thanked me halfway through the season, where endurance really, really was needed. Because as you start playing the season, you don't do heavy endurance stuff, and that's where
But CrossFit is not endurance. CrossFit is Metcon. It's about endurance under fatigue. So it's weightlifting endurance. You don't necessarily go for a 3K run. You would go for 400-meter sprints and then power clean a very heavy weight. And it's being able to do the combination of that together.
yeah. No, no. Listen. We got creative in the ways of how we do endurance. We'd like have like do a couple of jumping jacks and then go carry. Literally, like we had like temporary goalposts. They would have to move the goalpost from one area of the football field to the other. And then I'm like, you know what? I don't like it there. Just bring it back. And it was just all that kind of
Oh,
nightmare.
you're cruel. Cruel
Uh,
coach.
with winning comes forgiveness, I guess. I know, but there was a lot of as well hardcore. Like we would bring not only fitness coaches, but we'd bring CrossFit trainers like once every 2 weeks to do a session, just because I didn't want to do a routine. Routine was always something that people hated. When if you walk into the same practice and then it was all start with this, do that, and then shoot the ball and then leave people, it becomes very repetitive, and we wanted people to really discover new aspects of their fitness levels and new aspects of what they can do and what they can't do to produce. And honestly,
Hmm.
very very successful. Ironically, I used to coach 10 to 12 year olds in the beginning, and now all of my 10 to 12-year-olds are 35-year-old men and girls. So people with kids, people who work in like one of my captains was the first Uber GM for Abu Dhabi. You know what I mean? So it's just really different how this whole thing worked out. But anyway, enough about me. Let's talk
Cool.
about.
I think that just on that note, doesn't matter what sport you do as long as you get moving. Yes, I'm a hardcore, believer that CrossFit has its own pros. But moving, whether it's football, running, Pilates, is better than sitting on your bum on the couch all day. So whatever, takes your fancy, just get up and move.
Yeah, and you know what? It's a good part of it. Clears my head. Like even going
Yeah.
for a walk, for a jog. It just genuinely, that whole circulation aspect. Really, really, like I know I'm preaching right now, but it does help me think better.
So I'm not able to quote a particular study, but in general, I remember lots of studies would conclude that exercise is powerful enough to alleviate depression. And depression is a clinical issue. So exercise is kind of more powerful than a mood alleviator. It can even help combat a chronic mental illness. The reason I bring it up is because you were telling me how exercise is a mood booster for you. So I just wanted to kind of make a point that it can be life changing for some, more than just like your daily mood boost.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Like a lot of times, when I tell you take a walk to clear your head, it actually works on so many different levels.
Mm.
Like,
As long as you take a walk without AirPods on, listening to something, then it'll clear your head. Yeah.
it's funny you mentioned that because I try to unplug as much as possible. I know we technically are in the tech field where everything around us is technology based, but I know people that are constantly on WhatsApp or constantly on Slack or constantly on
Oh,
email.
I'm not.
Uh,
I very strictly check WhatsApp twice a day. That's it. Um, Look, my phone's always with me, so if I'm waiting for someone to respond, I'm there and I'll pick up the phone. But if someone sends me a message, wait 12 hours to hear from me. WhatsApping me to me doesn't mean that at least for the people pinging me should not mean to them that I'm reachable then and there. Just because I give you my WhatsApp number doesn't mean that you can beckon me,
yeah.
you know?
And that's the problem right now because WhatsApp in the beginning was so personal, but now it's been so monetized that I'm even getting spam messages, and I'm like, you know what, like it's good sometimes to be connected, especially in the pandemic times where there wasn't a lot of face-to-face interaction. So yes, it was good to connect, but some people just you know the problem is a lot of people get offended if you don't reply immediately, and I'm like, come on, like like I'm actually doing something with my life, right? So and Slack is my other pet peeve. I
Can I share with you what's my latest pet peeve, actually?
Yes.
LinkedIn. For some reason, over the last 6 months, there's been a surge of people thinking that they can ping you on, or DM you rather, on LinkedIn and expect you to reply. And I ignore because, sorry, I don't have to reply to you if I don't know you personally. But then they follow up, they hustle these people on LinkedIn. They're like, did you get my message? Can I get a minute of your time? It's like, buddy, if I ignore you, I don't want you to ping me. But some people are just hustlers, but I don't know if they know how to hustle in the right way. I always think find a way to get a warm introduction. Don't just DM people, or I don't know, maybe I'm not that much of a hustler, so I think it's inappropriate. What do you think?
So okay, coming from a guy who has almost 30,000 connections on LinkedIn, and coming from also a person who keeps posting jobs, especially for the last 3 months, I understand people are in a tough situation. They're looking for a job and stuff like that. But and unless they do a gimmick that makes catches my eye, I try, like, I'm going to say I try to respond by everybody saying, just please refer back to the link or something like that. But a lot of times when people say, can I take 30 minutes of your time and have a cup of coffee? You know what? If I'm going to do that, I'm going to have 10 to 15 cups of coffees a day. I will be wired all day.
For sure.
I mean, and
And your time is precious, it's limited, it's a resource.
exactly, and nobody gives you 30 minutes because it's all about the show, right? They want to talk about themselves. And listen, again, always looking for talent. I love people, but there's a limit when you get like 20 of these messages a day. There's no way you can reply to them.
So let me tell you what I've started doing, even with people that I get introduced to personally. Oh, so okay, wait. Firstly, let me take a step back. If someone introduces me without asking my permission first, I get really ticked off. So I will never send an intro email between someone and you without asking you first, hey, I want to connect you. Do you mind? Because then I'm kind of obliging you to message someone. Anyway, it happens. All right. So if I'm in a position where I'm talking to someone and all they want is to tell me about themselves and think out loud effectively, I always kind of bring them down to reality and I say, and how can I help you? What is the objective? Why are we chatting? I think people sometimes just want to be heard and want to chit chat, which is fine if you find someone else who just wants to chit chat. But if you're someone who's trying to manage your time, and I'm being super, super, super strict about every minute of my day, um, some people may think I'm not a very nice person for the way I manage my time when it comes to meeting them.
I think I've spoken about the same exact topic with another person on the show, where people WhatsApp you saying, hey, and then like, as you said, and then 3 hours later they say, hey, and then like an hour later they say, how are you? And I'm like, just spit it. What do you want? Like get to the point. Like, what do you want? It's not like I was even at one time in my life, I looked for a software that does introductions because everybody wants introductions, but I'm not going to like, I know a lot of people do blind introductions where they just say, hey, meet Abe. And I'm like, who is this person and why do I have to talk to him?
And why have they not asked for your permission first?
Exactly. I will be nice and reply to the email, but I will call that person and say, hey, what the F? Come on. Like this is, they know how everybody's busy and it's always, because we work in the tech field and everybody wants to raise money, and rule number one in any mentorship, and people who know me really well, I'll tell them about my rules. I don't raise money for anybody anymore. That's it. That's a part of my life that I had to close, and like not only close, shoot down, nail that door shut, seal for life. A lot of it is how you communicate. And sometimes people take advantage of people being nice and stuff like that.
The trick is to not be nice anymore.
Yeah, maybe I have to.
And then people meet me in person. They're like, "You're so much nicer than you come across." And I'm like, "Yeah."
Actually, just somebody yesterday told me, he's like, can you ping Shereen? I've sent her an email. And I'm like,
she'll respond. Yeah, she'll respond if she wants to.
And I'm like, she's busy. You know what I mean? Like, so, and especially Arabs, I see, they crave connections, and I don't know if you saw that when we start a new program and we put them on Slack, and it's always the first Arabs are trying to connect with everybody. And some guy said, the hunger for connections, it's the Hunger Games for them, just.
Let me say something interesting on that. So as an Arab, I love connecting with other Arabs.
Yeah.
And look, I like to think, it's not racism. Okay. I have friends from all nationalities.
Sure.
But something draws me to want to be friends with other Arabs, especially Arabs that are closest to where I'm from, which is Bahrain. Take the gym, for example. I'm friends with all the Emirati boys and girls, actually. I just don't go to the ladies' class. But, I'm like, hey, you're Khaliji, I'm Khaliji, let's be friends. Yes. And, we're all just friends with each other. And it's not that we don't speak to anyone else. We're just kind of drawn to each other. So I'll be friends with them first, and then the other Arabs, like the Egyptians, and so on.
And I know what you're talking about because, the first year university when I went to school in Canada, and that's the first thing, you look for, like, okay, who is like very similar mentality, and then you open up, obviously, and all that good stuff. But that's like an instinct, and I think you are correct. And I see it even faster in Arab expats who've been living outside, because then you have a shared mentality. You're not very Arab, but you're not very foreigner. Like you're in this really weird niche space. I remember once we went to Cuba, and there was like an Arabic restaurant there, and I'm like, wow, you know what I mean? Like
well, when you say Arabic restaurant, I bet you mean either Egyptian or Lebanese or Moroccan, because ain't no Khaliji restaurants abroad. No one wants.
There was
Mendy abroad.
There was a Mindy place in Canada down the street.
Okay. So for the Saudi students, I'll bet you.
Yeah, because we had a huge Saudi population, and But in all fairness, like Khaliji, like I'm Palestinian Jordanian, and like there's a lot of the rice and meat component in all.
Yeah, the good stuff.
I love how we walked from gym to like food.
Balance, you got to work off those carbs. Sorry, I know you're fasting. I don't mean to,
That's fine.
Get your appetite going.
That's fine. Yeah, where we work, there's a place that does floats. Have you ever had a float?
What's a float?
Float is like a cream soda, soft drink with ice.
Oh, I wouldn't eat this. So I actually don't eat any I don't drink any fizzy drinks. I remember when I was like 10, and my mom took me to see a nutritionist. The lady told me if you consume carbonated beverages, the gas in the carbonated beverage is just gonna make you bloat because you're drinking the gas. And I was like, oh, I don't want that. And something in me back then switched, and I just don't have fizzy drinks. Like some people really crave like a Coke or Pepsi with their burger, and I just don't get it. I'm like, give me water.
I'm with you. I haven't had, like, I'd never crave anything, and I'll have a diet Pepsi or a diet 7 Up maybe once a month. I've seen the damage that Pepsi and Coke and all of that have done to people's bodies, and like the obesity. And I know people who would not eat anything without a Pepsi attached to it, and honestly, in my opinion, it's a bit sad.
Yeah, but for those people who genuinely feel like they can't have a meal without their drink, I don't blame them because I think the food manufacturing companies know that they're commercializing a drug form. And often when you're hooked, it's very hard breaking off an addiction. Now, it's one thing to be hooked on something like alcohol or cigarettes because in this day and age, they're acknowledged as addictive things. What I think it fails to be common talk is the fact that you can be addicted to white sugar, and white sugar in various forms, whether it comes as Coca-Cola or croissants. This stuff is garbage, but the manufacturers know that, and they engineer them in a way where they are addictive because it's all about maximizing corporate profits.
Yeah.
So if they get you to not stop, then they make more money. I fundamentally believe that there's a lot of corporate greed when it comes to the F&B space. So often, if you don't know that drinking Coke is like smoking a cigarette in terms of addiction, I'm obviously not being numeric in my comparison. Just figure. Yeah, like if you don't know and then you're hooked, you're like, oh damn, I'm hooked and I need to shake off this addiction. It's kind of like smoking back in the day was not seen as something so dangerous.
And it's funny you mentioned, alcohol and, soft drinks. And if you look at it, if you look at an ad of a soft drink, it's always like these super happy, super fit people drinking it and saying, oh, look, it's, like how life has changed them drinking that drink. And it honestly really replicates the ads that they had in the 60s and the 70s about tobacco and smoking and even, you know what I mean? Like people
It's marketing.
it is marketing. The marketing machine does work. I have to be honest.
Hot people sell. So.
It's true. It's true. It's true. So tell me, so what's in the future for Shereen?
Hopefully more crossfitting. I'm not joking. I don't know if you know this, but I took a 2-week holiday a month ago to work out, to have the opportunity to work out twice a day, which is my ambition. I just can't do it around work. Like once a day is more than enough.
It is draining. Keep in mind, like,
oh, but I love it. Like, again, addiction, addiction comes in many, many forms.
Okay, I'm not huge onto the gym these days. I try to work out 3 times a week. Sometimes I'll try to squeeze another session here or there, or go for a jog or a walk or whatever. But because what I do full time at work really drains me, so I really struggle sometimes in finding the energy to do that.
So the way you go about it is you make your gym something you don't compromise. One thing that helps is having a set time where every day you're making that class or, window of time in the gym, no matter freaking what. And then it becomes a habit. And once you do that over, I think a 3-week period is the time at which a new habit forms. It literally becomes something you don't compromise. Kind of like the time at which you need to go to work. Some people have a strict, I need to be at work at 8 or 8:30 or 9, whenever that is. Somehow, no matter how late you sleep the night before, you'll make it to work on time, if you don't want to get fired, that is.
Sure.
So I think it's the same with working out. There have been periods of times where I've allowed myself to be more flexible. So I'll say, oh, depending on work, I'll catch the 6:30 class or the 7:30 class. And when you add the or, that's when things go out the window. But if you have a I'm getting out of here no matter what attitude, that is the perfect way to start forming new habits.
And I agree to that point because I hired a trainer because now when somebody's waiting for you, you know you can't miss it. You know what I mean?
Oh, and when you pay in advance, you're like, I need to make my money's worth.
Exactly. Also like the sense of disappointment. You don't want to disappoint that person. And I genuinely, I do not. I'm the kind of person who do not want to. Let people down. Like I'll even, when they're offering a piece of chocolate, like even a small piece of chocolate, before I eat it, it's not about me feeling bad about the chocolate, about what is this person gonna say when I tell them I had that piece of chocolate. I just don't want to go through that conversation. You know what I mean?
Oh, Abe, you and I need to talk about something. Okay. So my brother told me about a study. Excuse me if I butchered the details, but I'll tell you the overall gist, okay?
Sure.
So someone went and investigated why in New York you had either really, 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 really nice areas or really, 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 really crappy areas. There wasn't that in the middle. They went through some like police reports to figure out like what causes vandalism. Basically, the conclusion was if you have so much as a broken window in a neighborhood, people will vandalize the street. If everything was prim and proper, people are not going to vandalize it. The same can be applied with habits. I'm not a fan of just a bite. I believe in it's all or nothing. If you're committed to, let's say, not eat chocolate during the working week, then people will respect that. I've been in positions where I've been on a strict, diet for whatever reason. If someone brings cake to the office, I say, sorry, I can't. What are they going to do? Like force feed you? I say, sorry, like please respect my rights. As much as someone can't, like, no one can force you to do anything.
Yeah.
And not wanting to upset that person will be your broken window. Because see, if you accept that piece of cake, what's going to happen the next day when someone else brings donuts, or the next day when someone brings chai karak to the office, whatever it is, right? So that's how I like to apply discipline. And trust me, that person who's offering you that candy, they're going to forget about it by the end of the day. They're not going to take it personally.
Easier said than done. Okay, for a while I was a vegetarian, and it's not as hard in Dubai or anywhere I lived. But when you go back home and you go to your aunties and whatever, and then they say, Abe doesn't eat meat or it doesn't eat chicken. Whatever.
I was vegetarian for 5 years. People respected it. Not a single person forced me to eat meat the whole time I was vegetarian.
I'm not saying people respected me, but like the older generation, they're like, they have like a big piece of lamb with rice, and I'll have only the rice and a bit of yogurt on there. And they're like, have the meat. And I'm like, I can't eat meat. And they're like, what is wrong with you? This is like blah, 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 blah meat from this place. And I'm like, I love it, but like, no, like no means no.
Yeah, you should just be firm. But I believe no one can force you to do anything. I'm a firm believer of that.
Yeah, so
no one can force you to reply to emails. You don't want to.
And I like how we were talking about discipline today. Like this is good. We were talking about 3 pillars of discipline today. But
look, I'm not disciplined with all things. Don't get me wrong. I'm not here to preach. But it's all about management. Put it that way.
I agree. So okay, I promised I'd ask you this curveball question. If you had one superhero you would want to mimic, or a superpower you'd like to have, what would that be, or who would that be?
Interesting. Okay, actually, let's play a game. I'll tell you, but then I want to hear from you what you thought I would say.
Okay.
So, not that I like Mystique. I think she's, a villain. And who wants to be a villain? But I think the ability to transform your body to be someone else could be very freaking powerful.
Okay, and so I like how you said Mystique, because a couple of people on the show did pick villains.
Oh, okay.
So I'm a big comic book guy. So, and there is a villain called the Mad Hatter who has many hats. And I don't know if you've seen me in the office. I always wear different kind of hats. I have actually hundreds of hats at home. I'm a collector. So I would pick with that because that's my personality. But for you, I would have, went with the more traditional Wonder Woman route, just because very strong physically, emotionally, mentally, person. But Mystique, it's definitely a curveball for me.
It's not Mystique the character. I'm just picking on her superpower.
Yeah, her
I'd
superpower.
use it for good, of course, not for evil.
Of course. I'd love to be in other people's shoes. Keep in mind, my first startup was in the call center business. So the first question they tell you, even when I was an agent in my life as a call center, put yourself in the customer's shoe. This is where, now this is where
Yeah.
the power comes in. Well, it was fantastic having you on board. I think we had a very cool chat, and we talked about a lot of things. Would you like to tell my audience anything else?
No, I just had a really good time on the show. Hope people don't think I'm crazy and that I'm a nice person. But it was a pleasure chatting to you, and we should definitely grab a tea, not a float or a coffee around the DIFC sometime soon.
Definitely, definitely. So again, we do have a hashtag that I want everybody to follow. It's hashtag Real Talk No Nonsense, and you heard it today. For all of our audience, thank you very much for listening, and thank you.
Thank you.